Holly Cotton here, and I am excited about our guest today. One, as a fitness fanatic and healthcare wellness advocate, I love whenever I can learn new information to make sure that I am also the healthiest version of myself. So today I am joined by Justin Frandson, who is a renowned performance coach and author. He specializes in nerve work and is the founder of athleticism.com and emfrrocks.com. So it's so nice to meet you, Justin. I can't wait to hear
Yeah,
all
thanks,
about
Holly, for
this.
having me on.
Yeah, so let's start off with you being a performance coach and having over 25 years experience in that. So tell us about your journey of how you started off to become where you
Yeah,
are right
I was an athlete and looked to play college tennis at SC, and I got hurt. And so I just wanted to help people figure out how to achieve their levels of performance that they wanted. So I got into sports performance training. I found a mentor named Dean Britton at a Scripps Clinic in La Jolla almost 30 years ago. And it was an incredible sports performance program. We did nerve work, fascia work, coordination work. This track-based program all for sports performance. And I've evolved it over the years into lots of treatments and such that we do. I treat concussions, and it's currently one of the most versatile sports performances programs out there. But what I ended up doing is recognizing something that allowed me to help even more people than we could help with our training programs. And it was in the EMF space, electromagnetic field space. So one of our athletes, Holly, strong, fit professional athlete, came in and he was wearing a smartwatch. And he said, "Hey, Justin, I have pain in my wrist." And I said, "Well, where?" And he pointed right to where his watch was. And I said, "Well, that's radiation that your watch is emitting. Did you know that?" And he said, "No, I had no idea." I said, "Well, take the watch off. Let's get that radiation off your wrist." And sure enough, the pain went away and his arm started to work again. And so that was really a big pivotal moment for me where I really wanted to look at how our bodies are electric and how it's different than the man-made electricity, and how our environment impacts our performance.
That's very interesting. And I was going to ask you to clarify that as well, because a lot of people work out or they go to the gym or they maybe even compete in a sport, but that is more of just being fit compared to performance. So, can you explain the differentiation between when you say performance, what that exactly
So
means?
sports performance is, I look at, there's a lot of levels of fitness on a totem pole. The bottom levels would just be, walking and breathing, type of stuff where you're just kind of getting some circulation moving. Then you get into more cardiovascular things, and then you get into more functional movement patterns that you would see. Then you could get into more like higher interval training stuff where you're doing more fast twitch, and then you get into levels that would be more performance oriented, where you're combining true coordinations with fast twitch, with reflexes, and we do all those things to connect to the infinite flow of the universe. So we get our athletes in an alpha brainwave state. So true performance training is more high level training for speed, explosiveness, coordination, ambidexterity, and eye speed recognition, a lot of balance training. Uh, Obviously, we keep them pliable and stable, fascia maneuvers, but it kind of covers a lot of the spectrum at the highest level. And and then it's really more for being more explosive in your sport, and then connect, and then staying in that brainwave state for performance is how I would describe what we do.
Okay, I just wanted to have that where we differentiated the two because I know I see people at the gym and I'm thinking, okay, you aren't an athlete, you're just working out. So there's a big difference between, like you said, just walking around the track to actually performing to win a sport or be the best at what you're doing. So I love that. Thank you for explaining that to us. Okay, so let's go back because I want to rewind to the EMF and I want you to explain. I know you said the watch, but can you explain that to us and then can you answer how are non-native EMFs different?
Yeah, for sure. So we're electromagnetic beings, Holly. We have, every living organism has a resonance, and it's an energy field that we call it our biofield that extends out about 6 to 8 feet from everybody, and that's a our energy can just emit out in every direction, right? It's not just a straight line out of my right ear. They didn't say stay 6 feet away from Justin's right ear. No, it's my whole resonance, a whole body that emits an electromagnetic field. Well, the Earth does the same thing. They call it the Schumann resonance. It's a field that just it's known to be about 7.83 hertz. It's called the Schumann resonance, and it changes depending upon the season. But when you get outside and you earth and you ground and you're earthing, going barefoot outside or in any body of water, we're getting fed by the nutrients of the Earth's resonance. It feeds our body battery essentially, and uh, but those are unpolarized waves, and they distribute equally in every direction. Another example would be is if I were to drop a pebble into a pond, perpendicular, just right above it, the splash of the pond would go out in a circular direction equally in every direction, right? Definitely, yeah. Why doesn't that pebble, if I drop it straight into the water, why doesn't the splash go in a straight line in one direction? Because that's just not the framework of how our universe is designed. We're designed off of scalar waves. That's the framework of the unpolarized waves. That our environment is electromagnetic blanket of an atmosphere, and we're electromagnetic, but we're built on the same wave forms, which are unpolarized. Now, those are called electromagnetic fields, and those are native waveforms. The non-native ones are electricity that we made, that man made. Those are all one directional waveforms. They're designed to go in a straight line, essentially, or a straight direction, I should say. And they can vary them now. They can vary the waves about 30 degrees or so. But that's why when you look at cell tower panels, Holly, you'll see a panel facing every direction. And it's because those waveforms, those wireless signals, they can only broadcast in a one directional waveform or they don't work. And it's the same with electricity in our homes as well.
Mm. Okay, so go back to the watch because I know whenever we're talking or whenever people think electricity, they're thinking it has to be the wiring that goes through from one point the current is going, wherever from the starting point from the box to the actual device that we're trying to get an electrical charge to. So whenever you're talking about things like you said with the Apple Watch or a Samsung Watch or whatever, the smartwatch. So how does that work again? I know you said that you were telling him it's radiation, but break it down for people that are chronic sports watch people. As mine is right here. So give us like break it down to us so that we can understand what exactly do you mean when you say it's radiation?
So radiation would be this non-native waveform. It's in a more faster level of a speed of a wavelength. And you can have ionized or non-ionizing radiation. And the ionizing would be something that's X-rays. They cause a thermal effect. They oscillate your cells and raise the temperature. So our government's kind of said, hey, that level is not okay for our body, but anything else is okay. And unfortunately, that's just not true. There's a doctor named Martin Pall that discovered that the voltage gated calcium channels break down. So those are four big words to say the gateway for your cells to derive energy is disrupted when there's even low level radiation, low level vibrations of non-native waveforms in your environment, from electricity all the way up to wireless signals. So what we're seeing with a smartwatch are 5 different bandwidths of wireless signals plus a battery in it. So you get the milligauss from the battery. So you're seeing so much just millimeter waves and so many waveforms that are non-native directly on your wrist. So whether it's a cell phone or a smartwatch or your car, what have you, all those devices have 5 different signals in them. They'll have cellular, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and they'll have a broadband spectrum, which is where all the apps track everything that you're doing. And then that's why your life of your battery doesn't last very long, because of all the tracking and tracing that these apps do on you every second of the day. And then you have the GPS, so that knows where you are in space. So those are 5 different signal strengths. And the way I look at this stuff, Holly, is I measure the speed of the wavelengths, and then I convert it into a wave per second, because everyone can understand that. How many waves do these things emit per second? And then I look at how many we do when we're sleeping. I look at what the earth does, and I look at what these devices do. And then we look at the understanding that those are different waveforms. So they're non-native, so they're polarizing. And so that's kind of how I've come about understanding this whole invisible, field of electromagnetic, radiation. And so basically, let me start with electricity. The electricity is measured in 3 different meters, essentially. You have a milligauss meter, which meters 50 to 60 hertz or waves per second. So that would measure electricity. You have a dirty electricity meter, which measures amps to volts. And a Stetzer electric meter would be the best one to buy. You plug in the wall, it'll tell you how much static is in your lines. And that measures like 4,000 to 100,000 waves per second. Then we get into the wireless signals, and we talk about them in terms of millions of waves per second, which is megahertz, or gigahertz is billions of waves per second. So our cell phones and your smartwatch, Oura rings, they're all, the minimum level on those is 2.45 gigahertz. So that converts to 2.45 billion waves per second. Now you can times that number times 5, because you have 5 different bandwidths all within the watch, which I just shared. That's a lot of radiation directly on a localized area, especially near a pulse point in your body, or just on any area for any extended period of time. Now, 5G, I'll just stay on this little train here with the electricity stuff. 5G is measured at is 60 to 90 gigahertz, and that's 60 to 90 billion waves per second. And then telecoms allowed to go up to 300 gigahertz. That's over 3 times the highest level of 5G. So we're not even at the highest level of 5G, and we're already seeing a lot of people get sick. And I'll get into that in a second, how the environment plays a role in how we adapt to everything. But those numbers are absolutely daunting. So if you add 10 zeros to anyone's bank account, like that's a big deal, right, Holly? Yeah.
No, for sure,
So
for sure.
when you add 10 zeros to the speed of a wavelength that's polarizing, it messes with our body. And why do I say 10 zeros? Well, because when we are in a delta or theta brainwave state, when we're sleeping, are you familiar with those brainwave states?
General from when I was in nursing
Yeah.
school, like just back in the day. But yeah.
Right. So basically, obviously, the more awake we are, the faster the speeds of the waveforms go in our brain. And when we're sleeping or in a performance state, they're lower and slower. So when we're sleeping, we're a 1 or below 1 to 8 hertz or waves per second. That's a delta or theta brainwave state. That's lucid dreams. That's when we can create. That's when we get in the rapid eye movement, the REM patterns with our eyes. And we're really getting our hormones replenished and healing. 1 to 8. Remember what I said about the 5G? 60 to 90 billion waves. Your phone is 2.45 billion waves. Your smartwatch, 2.45 billion waves times 5. So that's a big difference. Now, when our athletes are in the flow state, they're 9 to 13 hertz or waves per second. So we rev really one with the Schumann resonance of the earth that comes in at, guess what? 7.83 hertz. So when we're outside being barefoot, we're optimizing and revving at about that same level of very low and slow bandwidth. When we introduce radiation at speeds that are up to 10 zeros plus faster than us, what happens is it messes with our energy field, which directly affects the chemistry of our body. Because Bruce Lipton will say we can't have chemistry without energy of our biofield. So if something environmentally is affecting our energy field, it's going to show up in our body. That's how we can now understand all this invisible wireless stuff, because we can measure it in a speed of a wavelength per second basis.
Yes, and I know I've talked numerous times with people about inflammation, and the feedback will be, well, I don't eat that way, or well, I don't use this, or I don't do this, so I don't have inflammation. But then you just gave a whole example of, you, even though you may not eat something, or you may not drink alcohol or expose yourself, that you are deliberately exposing yourself to, it's these indirect exposures that can also cause inflammation. So that goes into my next question is, whenever we're talking about in the environment, and whenever we're in these spaces where we think are actually safe, what is the biggest environmental stressor?
Yeah, right now, Holly, it's electromagnetic radiation, non-native waveforms. We've never seen the stressors at this level ever. I mean, think about it. So 140 years ago was the first time they put electricity into the homes. 140 years ago. So in 1889, 1889. So 140 years ago, that was the first time they put electricity in the homes. At that time frame, there were 6 cases of diabetes across the entire world. 6. So Arthur Furstenberg, he wrote the book called The Invisible Rainbow. He categorized the history of electricity and life. And so this is what he shares in his book. They couldn't find diabetes back then. It just didn't exist. And a lot of it was because the fake food wasn't as bad. The Industrial Revolution hadn't taken place yet. And so they hadn't industrialized the food and ag. But the big thing is there's not only just an internal environment with food that causes this stuff, but there's an external environment that's even more profound, I feel. And the craziest stats about this book is they called the flu in 1889, they called the flu because it would fly in and fly out with solar flares, cosmic shifts, atmospheric pressure shifts from native electromagnetic radiation, in our environment, electromagnetic fields in our environment that were native. They called the flu influenza because it was under the influence of the cosmos. That's wild. Now, not until we put electricity into our homes was the flu here to stay. And they called it the flu because it would fly in and fly out with those solar flares. So there wasn't a seasonal thing. And until we put electricity in homes, it became seasonal. And then from there, every major electrification, when we rolled out radio waves, that was 1918. That correlates with the Spanish flu. World War II, radar, satellites in the Van Allen belt, that correlated with a Hong Kong flu. And then we have, guess what? Everyone knows what they rolled out the last several years and continue to. 5G. So you guys, there's no scratching your head on this stuff. We're looking at our environment being polluted and everyone adapting to it. So the number one stressor, like hands down, and Zach Bush, do you know Zach Bush, MD?
I think that sounds familiar, but not sure.
Yeah, he's big on glyphosate. He has a great product called Ion Biome that's just great for helping your gut rebuild from glyphosate. He'll say, Justin, and he's a friend of mine, he'll say, Justin, we have over 40 years of them poisoning the planet and ag with glyphosate and from Roundup, and it's in other products as well. But that huge cancer-causing thing, it's documented. They've paid out billions of dollars in court cases to settle it because it's been so devastating for so many people. But I'll say, Zach, you have 40 years. I have 140 years since we introduced electricity in the homes and radiation. So I feel it's the biggest one. And the other part is they're rolling out satellites, where they're rolling out wearable technology. We have this Internet of Things that everything's connected, and they're automating gas and electric meters, and they call them smart meters on your home. So those are being rolled out, and that's just polarizing people's homes. And then all these new devices inside the homes are all wireless. We've never seen this level of radiation. And then now solar, which causes lots of dirty electricity. And then the other biggest thing is, and I want to talk about separately as well, but we'll get into the electric car thing, which is 18% lower testosterone for guys and girls driving electric cars. It's such a massive stressor sitting on that big battery. So we've never seen an entire fad in all these different areas of electricity in the history of our existence.
So, for someone that's listening to all of this up until this point, and they're thinking, okay, so now I have all of these things because I use a smartphone, I use a smartwatch, I drive a gasoline powered car, I have electricity in my house, like, so they're looking at all of these things like, wow, I am doing all of the things that he said are actually hurtful to my health, my family's health, my kids' health, my pet health. So, what advice can you give someone that's saying, well, what can I do effective today? Like, what can I implement today that can change some of these risk factors?
Right. Well, the big thing is understanding how we're interplay with our environment. Like, what is your environment? So I always like to educate people first, and that's what we did the first bit of our talk, is we understand how we're different than this electromagnetic fields that are man-made. So once we understand that, then we identify what they are. And it's like, well, if it might be everything, yeah, we all live in electrical boxes. We call them homes, but they're electrical boxes. Yeah. So turn the electricity off in your bedrooms at night. That might be a really good first step. And turn your Wi-Fi router off at night. To get a $9 outlet timer that you set to turn off when you're sleeping so you're not getting zapped. Put your devices on airplane mode and then turn them off and charge them outside of your bedrooms, because your electricity is going to be off in that bedroom, hopefully. And you can get an electrician to put a timer on your electrical outlet panel to do that. And it might cost a little bit, but it's going to save you so much in the long run. And the goal would be, Holly, is to get the resonance of your bedroom as similar as it would be if you were outside. So you want to get it low and slow and as close to being out into nature. You want to create uh, that coherence in your environment. And the best way to do it is by proximity and lowering the signal strength, making sure your home's wired healthy, would be great. Stop driving electric cars. I would avoid solar on your home as well. Uh, and so those are some of the major things that people can do to help coexist with this stuff. The other few big ones I would say is stop wearing a smartwatch. I mean, look, I've worked with professional athletes for almost 30 years. We don't test them every day. So why are you testing yourself every day?
Mhm.
Got to get out of the meta universe and understand how you feel, know how you feel, how you slept, when it's time to eat, how many steps you took. You can't have meta universe telling you that stuff. You got to get out of that rut, connect to God, get grounded by nature. That's how you're going to optimize your health, performance, and longevity, not by technology telling you this stuff. So there's some simple things. And then obviously, we have our EMF rocks grounding bags, and we'll get into that in a little bit, I'm sure, too. But when we are inside in those environments or even on the go, our products, our grounding bags, are the single most natural approach to allowing you to have that coherence in your environment. But you got to know what it is, how it works, what it is, establish usage and proximity protocols, grounding protocols, and then use products to help support it.
Mm, okay. Interesting, Justin. Okay, I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes. Okay, so exactly what do you do? So I know you said you're a performance coach. So tell us about how all of this has intertwined into athleticism.com and your book, how you did all, like, how is all of that intertwined, and how, like, what is your job with with this, just spreading awareness, or you're selling products, or you're just speaking about it? How do all of these things become your actual career that you're doing?
Yeah. So my first three-fourths of my career were just hands-on with athletes in the trenches with them, and I, I I was able to help a lot more people rolling out our EMF Rocks grounding bags and all of our other curated health products on athleticism.com. And we have toothpaste and MCT oils and essential oils and jump band, plyometric products. We have all these incredible, products on that site. And I was only able to help so many people, just dollar per hour of my time. So what I found is the more I speak about educating people on the environment and how we interplay with it, and share what that environmental stressor is of electromagnetic radiation. Just as if you polluted the ocean, the marine life's going to get sick. You pollute our environment, we're going to get sick. Same thing, same concept. But people just don't equate it to it because you can't see the stressors. So they don't think about invisible radiation as being a pollutant, because you don't see air unless you're in LA and it's all polluted and you can kind of smell it and see it. But other than that, we just don't equate it to it. So I'm really been a big voice in the space, in the health space, of teaching people about how we interplay with our environment. And the easiest way to get someone better, Holly, is to make sure their environment isn't toxic. If they're in mold, get them out of the mold, and then they'll get better. It's kind of a simple concept, but people just miss the fact that electromagnetic radiation, is pollution in our environment. So I've been able to share that and share that messaging, share with people how to coexist with non-native waveforms, and then use our products when they're using them as well. And we can help so many more people through the product sale. So yes, I still see a couple professional athletes per day probably, but majority of my time is spent with the products and getting these products out to people. So I do trade shows. I speak on amazing podcasts like yours, Holly, and which I'm so appreciative for you allowing me to share this information to get the awareness out to people, so we can help more people through our products and our information. Because once you know how we interplay with this environment, once you know that a virus is our adaptive system at work because we've been polluted environmentally, we're not going to live in fear. We're not going to hide and live with masks and use drugs as health. We're going to get so far above and beyond what Western medicine and the propagandas of news are sharing with us. That's not health. And so once we start to understand this stuff, then we could start to really dive into, okay, man, well, shoot, my hormones aren't being messed up. I don't feel well. I'm driving this electric car. Well, stop driving an electric car. Like, sell the car, get a combustion car. Like, you're going to feel so much better. So that's been my storytelling and how we're able to help more people, and especially through, amazing products like our grounding bags.
Okay, I was just curious. I was just wondering because, people, because me, my trade is a nurse. So I've been a nurse. My master's is in nursing. So whenever people, I'll go somewhere, and now I'm a media personality. So I'm at a political event. So if I speak on something wellness, people will kind of side eye me, or they'll, well, what do you, and I'm like, okay, don't let this fool you. I also have this. So I was just wondering, because I obviously see you have a bunch of, like we say in the South, a bunch of pots on the stove. So I was just trying to get some clarification on that.
Yeah.
So,
And it's, yeah, Holly, it's important to share that when you're an expert in your field and you're speaking on things, like, that's a huge thing. I mean, I have professional athletes, from UFC fighters to pro beach volleyball to collegiate swimmers. I mean, you name the sport, I'm working with them on a day-to-day basis. And the biggest thing I can do is teach them about how they interplay with their environment.
Mm.
So if someone's in a dorm room at UCLA and they have a router right above their bed and they're in the top bunk of a bed, they're not going to sleep well at all. And then their bodies are going to break down. Like, we got to start to understand how we interplay with the environment. So that's what I'm doing, teaching these people how to deal with their environments. And then really, our grounding bags are sold through doctor clinics all around the country. So when we can have a product that can be sold out through doctors, like, that's huge. And then, the messaging is just the biggest thing. It's teach people what we've shared with you today.
I love that. I love that. Okay. All right. So, Justin, for anyone that is intrigued by all of the information that you said and they want to come to your website or they want to buy your product, so how can we be a part of athleticism.com, your other company? How can people find your book? Like, what is all that information, and how can we also support you at what you're trying to do?
Oh, thank you, Holly. So athleticism.com, it's spelled athletic.ism.com. For those that can't spell, it has all of our curated health products. emfrocks.com has our grounding bags, our Faraday bags. We have toothpaste and MCT oil as well. And then you can find us on Instagram at EMF Rocks or at Athleticism Neurostacking, where I talk about how we stack the nervous system for sports performance. Also, you can find me on Instagram every Friday at noon Pacific time on Human Garage. A Human Garage is a self-healing fascial maneuver community. And so you do your own fascial maneuvers and you self-heal and you optimize your performance. You get rid of pain and injuries and dis-ease in the body, all through breathing and fascial maneuvers and releasing trauma in that way. Also through rehydrating your fascia through diatomaceous earth, Irish sea moss. Highly recommend that, because the barium in the chemtrails is another environmental stressor that's dehydrating us. So those are the different platforms that you can find me at. I'll be speaking at Dr. Artis's conference this week. I'll be at Dr. Patrick Porter's event. Dr. Charlie Fagenholtz's in October in Nashville, Tennessee. The list goes on and on as far as all the different conferences that I'll be speaking at. But day to day, you can find us on our websites and purchase our amazing curated health products there.
Thanks for sharing that. And listen, so now that this was the education show, so now I'm gonna have to get you back so we can talk about some specific things, because I know the feedback is gonna be, well, what is this, or what can I do, or what did he mean about electric car versus the combustible car, or what like, so I we definitely have to have you back, Justin, so we can talk more in depth about a lot of the things, since we just covered a little bit, sprinkle of of everything great that you have done. So again, you guys, Justin Frandson, I will have all of his information in the podcast notes as well. So as well as his websites and how you can get all of his information. So thank you so much, Justin. I definitely received all of the knowledge. Now I can go speak somewhere with a little bit. Act like I know about magnet. And look, I'm going to tell everyone to stop wearing their Apple Watch now.
Good, please do. And if you still have to use it, wear it once and then not for 4 months, and just test where you're at. Put it on airplane mode if you're going to be wearing it constantly and you're like, you have to have it for some reason. There's ways to use these tools, but not let them use you.
I love that. It has great closing words. Thank you. So that is Justin Frandson, you guys. All right.
Thank you, Holly.
Don't hang up, Justin. Okay. 90